Hi there, it's Lucinda. I'm just jumping on to let you know about some exciting news. Well, it's exciting to us at Actus. We're launching a brand new product, Actus 360 now. It's a ready-to-go 360 product aimed at small and medium-sized organisations or independent HR professionals. And it's the perfect tool if you want to put in place leadership development or maybe manage or embed your values and your culture more so. And we've just designed it with ready-to-go templates so that you can either design your own templates or you can use one of ours. So if 360 is something you think you might want to explore, we've got lots and lots of resources. I've got a book, The Complete Guide to 360 Feedback. I did a podcast quite recently on it as well. So it might be something that you want to investigate. I'm going to be running some webinars. So next week on the 24th, Thursday the 24th, there'll be a webinar where I'll do a little bit of an introduction. And if you're an independent consultant, there'll be something on the 2nd of March. And obviously, if you're hearing this on repeat and those dates have gone, you can just go to our website and you'll be able to get more information there, www.actus.co.uk. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode with Morna Bunce. She's such a fabulous inspiration. I always enjoy catching up with her. And if you want to know more about our 360 product, then please don't hesitate to get in touch. Hello and welcome to this week's HR Uprising podcast. And today I've got a guest with me. I've got Morna Bunce, who is the Chief People Officer at Stowe Family Law. And although this is going to have a little bit of a real HR element to it, because I think it'll be good to understand a little bit about Morna and her background and her career to date, one of the things I really want to focus in on is the culture that she's been involved in at the law firm that she works within or presides over in an HR term, or chief problem solves, and explore one of the particular different activities. I'm not quite sure how to explain it. It's known as Stowfest. And I understood a little bit about this last year and was really impressed by this engaging developmental event that everybody got involved in. And that was a virtual event. And I know that this year you've just done it for real. So no one here knows what Stowfest is, but it's obviously a festival element. And I guess we'll explore that later on, Morna, so you can tell us a bit about it. But I think it says quite a lot about the culture that you've established within the business that you are part of. So would you like to just introduce yourself a little bit?
I would. Thanks very much, Lucinda. So I've actually been at Stowe's for 17 years now, which is pretty much the entirety of my working life. But I've not always been in HR. And I think this is probably something that's quite common to a lot of HR professionals. They maybe have a bit more of a squiggly career than perhaps others do. So I actually joined as a fresh-faced graduate. I started in their accounts team doing their client billing. And at some point or other over those 17 years, I've kind of had a finger in most pies, most functional pies. So as I say, I've done quite a bit in the accounts team, been responsible for sort of advertising and media stuff, involved in kind of like onboarding new clients, and found my way to HR. That's always kind of been where my interest was. And actually, it was my mum that got me into HR. She was an office manager at a school and she decided she was going to do her CIPD at night school. So I thought I'd go along with her. The two of us did it together, and that was back when it was still called personnel practice, so that'll give you a clue as to how long ago that was. So yes, as I say, I've not worked in lots of different organizations. I've not had that exposure, but I would say I've got quite a good commercial grounding in the business where I am, just because of all the kind of different fingers I've had in various pies. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I have been the Chief People Officer now for the last 12 or so months when I joined the board, which was a real kind of watershed moment for me in my career, having sort of started out at that young age with the business. To be able to then say that I'd made it up to the C-suite was really quite something
congratulations
special.
And do you want to tell us a little bit about what Stowe is? Obviously it's a law firm.
Yes, that might be useful, might it? So yeah,
context,
we're a law firm, but we practice only in family law. And we're slightly unusual in that we're private equity backed, which is not that common in the legal world. And we're probably the largest supplier of family law services as a standalone unit. So we don't do anything else. And that's all we specialise in, which means, we're really able to kind of tailor our approaches to things, in terms of our people, but also in terms of our clients as well, which is really great. And we're very much a growing business.
You're national, aren't you? Whereabouts are you based?
We are, yeah. We've just we're now tipped over the 40 office mark. So we're mainly in England, but we have also branched out into Wales as well. And we're kind of top to bottom, up and down the country. So we stretch all the way up to Newcastle in the north, and we're down in Bournemouth, Winchester, down on the south coast as well, and kind of everywhere in between. And we have a variety of locations, city-based, market towns, and just, quite a large network of offices, which obviously presents its own problems in terms of culture and engagement as well for us.
Yeah, so 40, and how many people are there? So 40 offices, that's quite a lot of people you've got.
Yeah, so there's 212 of us altogether, and the split of that is we've got about 90 qualified lawyers, and the rest are legal assistants, are still client facing, or they're kind of like specialists in our central teams.
So do you have any support in the HR function as you've grown?
I do. I'm very, very lucky. And when I tell other HR professionals the size of my team, they do get a little bit jealous. So I'm really lucky. I've got 4 people sitting on our operations side of the business. So headed up by our head of people and culture, and she's got 3 in her team. And on the talent acquisition side, I've got 3 people on that side of the business as well. And I'm also really lucky because we've got an internal comms specialist, which is just so invaluable for us. So for the size of headcount we've got, the ratio is really very generous, but we are a people business, and we see that as an investment in our people, kind of to have that.
And I think that ties into actually what we talk about later, this whole sort of festival approach that you had to engaging people and getting people involved. And I know you've been up and down virtually and then physically as we've opened back up out of COVID, haven't we? So in terms of your progression, just understanding, when you went into HR, or you said you were attracted to it by what your mum said, but you had an opportunity within, so you were given that opportunity. What was HR like before, and what would you say you've brought to the HR role?
Yeah, so I mean, it was very, very transactional. HR with people that made sure you got paid, and where you went to book holiday, and that was kind of really the total of it. And then we were purchased in 2017, and our senior partner at the time, our founder, retired, and then we started to see a lot more investment in the business, and we were able to sort of move things along, and then really sort of the back end of 2019, as we moved into 2020, that was when I was able to sort of divest myself of all the other kind of responsibilities that I had, and then purely just had a people focus from there on in, and that was when we launched our people strategy as part of the wider firm strategy, and just become a lot more value add, and and particularly around talent acquisitions, become very sophisticated, which is really important because we're growing, just all the things that we kind of, our hands were a little bit tied, either because of investment reasons or just because we didn't have the autonomy to kind of deliver on a particular agenda. That's kind of sort of fallen away now, and I'm very lucky that I do sit on the board, and I've got that kind of visibility into those conversations, and I can influence what's going on at that sort of level, and really represent our colleagues' views to the board, and that's a real privilege for me to be able to do that.
So I can tell that obviously the business you're part of is relatively unusual, I suppose, forward thinking in terms of what you're doing. But I guess if you're thinking of other listeners who are out there thinking, wow, I'd really like to make it to the C-suite, I'd like to get it onto the board. Have you any tips or learnings that you'd share that other people could?
Gosh.
could
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it is luck, and it is being in the right place at the right time. I think it's also hard work and showing, through your delivery what you are capable of. But also, I think you've got to push yourself forward, and make those opportunities for yourself. I think if you are not able to clearly articulate to your manager what your vision for your own career is, then they're not going to be able to make it happen for you. And that was the one thing that I did. I kind of sort of had to put my big girl pants on, as it were, and actually speak to my boss and say, you know what, this is where I want to be, and I would really like to be in that position at Stowe's if at all possible. But ultimately, if I have to make a tough call for my career, then I was at that stage where I felt confident enough to do that, and that's not easy. And I think the other thing that I would really recommend do is kind of build your kind of HR allies in other businesses. I think we're really lucky in HR. People are very willing to share. They're very giving of their time, and sharing of ideas and information And I think that's really wonderful. You don't necessarily see that in other disciplines. I was talking to our CMO the other day, and she was horrified. She said, oh, marketing people would never share what they were up to. And she said, you just wouldn't find that. And there's so many wonderful groups on LinkedIn, you have your group, and on Facebook and stuff, where people are so willing to share. And you have to be a little bit cheeky and kind of capitalize on those opportunities. We had a day this week, myself and my two number twos met up with another people team from another business, nothing to do with the legal world, completely different sort of business to ours. And we just sat and we spent the day together chatting about what was on our mind, sharing ideas, showing each other what we were working on, and just having that free flow exchange of ideas was just great. And it was reassuring, because you kind of think, oh, okay, some of the challenges that we're having, there's some commonality there, but also it kind of made us really reflect on all the stuff that we delivered, and actually give yourself a pat on the back, because it's been a tough sort of 12-18 months to be in HR, I think.
Yeah, and that is the beauty, actually, isn't it? Because you can share and not really be competing, whereas in marketing and we're indirect. So collaborating, why not? And if it's actually making everybody's working life better, it's not a bad thing, is it, for any organisation? And taking the time out to go and do that and have that thinking and reflection and recognition is a nice thing to do as well. You talked about your people strategy. And I guess that having a people strategy, that must, and the fact that you've demonstrated value through a people strategy, must play into the fact that your boss was open to taking to the board, let's create a role, because presumably you've created that role for yourself. It didn't exist previously. I guess I'm assuming that you having this sort of strategy played into it and people seeing value from it. Would you say that was one of it? How did you go about, because sometimes that's another area that I think people who listen find a bit tricky, as to how to build a people strategy and how to bring it together. Have you any tips on that as to how you develop your people strategy?
Yeah, I mean, it really was, we really were starting with a blank piece of paper. So we had no sort of preconceived ideas. And I think one of the things that was really helpful for us was, as an organisation, we had a really clear sense of direction. So we were able to sort of take, right, what are the organisational goals, and kind of like, sort of cascade those down and try and sort of align what we were doing. And then sort of coming from the bottom up, we had taken part for a couple of years now in the best companies survey. So we had this whole wealth of information from colleagues, and we were able to sort of weave in things that were important to them as well, and kind of marry the two together. And we started literally with a blank piece of paper and a load of post-it notes, and sort of started scribbling down, and then things organize and you can distill it further and further. But then it's having the discipline to also say, well, what are the milestones in this strategy delivery, and what are we actually going to achieve, and how are we going to measure the success of this strategy? I think all too often it's too tempting just to have a wish list of, I want to do this, this and this, but actually you need to be able to demonstrate how that's aligned to the overall strategy of the business, and also what it's going to deliver for the business in terms of value, beyond just making it a nice place to work for people.
So it's definitely lining it up, and then of course that means you're enabling the overall business strategy, and people can see the value above you as well in terms of that. Do you think because you had a sort of a commercial background, an internal operational background, that gave you an advantage in doing that?
I do think so. And also, I think just the amount of time I'd been with the business, I kind of sort of knew inside out, our product and how we work and how we market and how we acquire clients. So I wasn't working in a really siloed way, just thinking about the people strategy. I was really able to kind of draw in from what was happening elsewhere in the business. And simultaneously, our CMO was devising our client acquisition strategy, and our senior partner was looking at our product offering. So we were developing the three things in conjunction with each other, and there was a lot of close collaboration.
Yeah, great. And then there's the synergy between you, and then they're all joined up, which is exactly what you want. Now, I think it's really that's ideal. I'm just thinking, actually, it would not necessarily be that easy, although it's good that you've been there that length of time. The disadvantage is that's what you've always known. So it's still kind of hats off to you to be able to think out of the box and be more fresh and be creative, or to think for the future. And I guess were these ideas that you'd always had, or how did you?
Yeah, I think because I had been there a long time, I could sort of see what needed to be done, and I was really lucky because I had that conversation to my boss and said, "Look, this is where I want my career to go." I was incredibly lucky because he said, "Well, let's bring somebody in as a mentor who can kind of prepare you for that role and kind of help you develop this strategy." And they brought in a really experienced interim HRD to work alongside me, and we worked through it together. And she just gave me that little bit of confidence that you know what you've doing here, you know what needs to be done, and actually this makes a lot of sense. And so she was able to look at it with that fresh external vision, and that kind of just validated my approach, I guess, in a way.
Brilliant. No, that sounds great. So then I mean, for me, this concept of Stowe Fest that people still probably don't know what we're talking about yet, I see this as an indication of the culture that you're part of there. I don't know whether that's what it is. Do you want to start talking a little bit about how that emerged, or whether it's cultural, if that's just my perception?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a real evolving story with us. So it kind of was born out of, we always had an annual legal conference. It sounds a little bit staid, and it probably is, and it was just for the lawyers, and we would invite barristers and subject experts in, and they would do lots of nice technical CPD, and then there would be some kind of like social element to it as well, and we would go away into a hotel for the weekend, the usual sort of corporate-y field type stuff, and it wasn't really very us. And then obviously last year, with everything that happened, we had the opportunity to take that online, because we couldn't physically do it in place, which actually meant we could open it up to the whole business for the first time, because we weren't kind of constrained with the logistics of trying to keep the business running, and the financial implications of taking everybody away for the weekend, that sort of thing. So we were trying to make it light-hearted, and we knew nobody wanted to sit on a Zoom call all day and have training. So as you know, Lucinda, because you took part, what we did was we pulled together a week-long program of lots of little bite-sized sessions, and we still had that technical legal CPD stuff. You came and you delivered a brilliant session about thriving through change, because we have a very aggressive change management program going on in the business. We had lots of social events. We had people come and speak to us about diversity issues. We had a real focus on well-being. We ran yoga sessions, PT, that sort of thing, and we sent gifts, and it was all based around this festival concept. Everyone had a festival lanyard and that sort of thing, and it was just trying to sort of keep it really light and enjoyable for people, but they could sort of access these bite-sized things from the comfort of their own home, but feel that they were coming together with their colleagues, which was the thing that everybody was really missing and really craving at that point. So that was last year's, and what we really wanted to do this year was replicate that in a day, and with everybody. But sadly, logistically, we just couldn't pull it together this year. I think everybody had probably had the same idea, and you couldn't get a venue for love nor money. Holders
and 40 people, it's a lot of traveling. If you've got 40 locations, where do you host that? Where do you put it?
Exactly. So what we ended up doing, we ended up having 3 events. So we had Stowe Fest North and Stowe Fest South, which were last week. I have a tall copied Carfest concept there with that. And then we had Stowe Fest Central a few weeks ago, which we held in Harrogate. And Harrogate's where the majority of our central teams are located. So we had, and doing it that way actually worked really well, because we were able to tailor the content and what we were doing to the kind of different groups and the different audiences. And it was just a fantastic opportunity just to hit the road again and see the whites of people's eyes and speak to them directly and hear their feedback and talk about what's going on in the business. And yeah, there might have been a little bit of socializing happening too.
Oh, about time, absolutely. You can't begrudge anybody a little bit of socializing after the last couple of years, right? No. So this year would have been more of like your traditional conference, I suppose, in my perception. So you had an agenda. No, what was?
I mean, we did, and our CEO kind of spoke to people and gave people a business update, and just we're trying to become, or hopefully we're kind of well on the way to becoming a real kind of purpose-led, values-driven organisation. So we try not to just talk about the commercial aspects of the business when we talk to people. Yeah, we give them that information because we think it's important that we have that transparency, but we try to talk more about them and their experience at the firm and what we're doing and how that impacts them, and just always trying to get two-way conversation going. So we used a tool called Slido, and people could ask questions, and then you vote the question up the board, and and our CEO is incredibly open. And he will, he doesn't squib it. He will answer your questions, which I think is really good. And yeah, we did have some legal training for the lawyers as well, because it's just too good an opportunity to have them all in a room and not do that. But in the central teams, it was more about for them to hear our strategy, but in a way that they were able to link what they do to it, because I think a lot of the time we're very focused on the client facing roles, and it's very easy to see how they deliver service to the clients and how they add that value and they generate the revenue. But for the central teams, there's a little bit of detachment, so it was a really great opportunity to bring them into that conversation and just help them understand a little bit more about how their roles are connected to the firm's overall strategy. So that was a great opportunity for us.
So the central team of people who are not necessarily client facing, is that what you're saying in terms of that?
So it's all our experts and our specialists. So the people team, the marketing team, the finance team, we have a wonderful client care team, IT. I haven't name checked them all, and I'll be in trouble if any of them hear this. But yeah, all those wonderful people that keep the lights on and the wheels turning, which means that our legal teams can deliver that great service to
Absolutely,
clients.
Unsung heroes. But making sure that they, I guess, so were they at that one as opposed to the north and south one, so you had a slightly different agenda for that, and brought them on. I mean, I think back to when I used to work in pharmaceuticals and things like that, quite a lot of businesses, it's a bit like the salespeople would get the conference and then everybody else is like whatever, but actually helping everybody be aligned and joined up and part of the vision and strategy, and understanding how they play a part and feeling valued is really, really important, isn't it?
And I really hate that when people refer to the lawyers and the non-lawyers. I'm like, please don't describe people by what they don't do. It's really disrespectful to the contribution that they're making.
And you use the term specialist, which is nice. So maybe going back to the Stowe Fest of last year, the virtual piece that you did, because I thought that was just in terms of the idea, and you put more different, and you had quite a different agenda in there and things like that, and it was quite radical, I think, or quite brave. I think it must have taken quite a lot of coordination. I'm just thinking, were there any things that you learned there, or did you get ideas from other people, or what made you decide to build the agenda the way you did? Was it just instinct?
Gosh, let me cast my mind
A long
back.
time ago, isn't it?
It was a long time ago. I mean, we all the way through lockdown, one of the things that we said from the very beginning is, tell us how this is feeling for you and tell us what we can do to help you, because it was new for everybody, and we were all finding our way, and suddenly you no longer had eyes on people in the office. And I don't mean that from checking up on their work, I mean to checking how they were feeling. So we had a really, really great line of communication going and lots of feedback loops built in. So we could tell from that what people were feeling as though they needed from us. So we kind of used some of that to sort of think, how can we help people? So like, for example, the wellbeing focus, everybody was highly stressed last year, and feeling the pressure. So that was really important. They were also telling us, you're throwing a lot of change at us. We can't cope, which is why we came to you and asked you to deliver that session for us, just to help people kind of understand that change journey. And they were also telling us that they were desperate to socialize, so we had to find some creative way of trying to get people together. And we did TV quiz shows, and we did like a murder mystery type thing, so we had various kind of like online events.
Some fun stuff.
And it sounds really silly, but even just sending the gift box out with that lanyard, and people were coming on the calls wearing the lanyard. So it was clearly important to them that they felt that connection to what we were doing. And there was a lot of social media activity, and our staff intranet was lit up with people talking about it. And there was just it just generated a bit of buzz. And I think it was just a bit of a welcome distraction for people at that particular point as to what was happening.
I think it was really well timed and really fresh, and I can see the whole lanyard thing. I mean, these are the sort of things that actually in different times maybe people, they take it for granted if you do it regularly, but it was so different. And that whole sense of belonging, is perhaps that's what people are missing out on, isn't it? By giving them the box, it's quite nice that they can come on. Great. Well, I mean, it sounds exciting actually, and I've always kind of watched. ever since I became aware of that from last year, I thought, oh, that's interesting. And I watch what you do in social media, and I can see it's a little bit different, particularly for someone in a law firm. And I suppose that fits because you're saying you're a little bit different the way you do things as a law firm, so it fits with your brand really. What are your future thoughts from an HR point of view? Any thoughts that as to where you want to go next, or what's next for you in your role in developing the people strategy?
Gosh, okay, yeah. I mean, I was just speaking to my colleague this morning about this. I was like, we need to start planning next year now, not just Stowfest, but a general kind of approach to things. And we were like, oh, what would happen if we didn't deliver any projects just for a couple of months? We just operated at a business as usual level, and actually we were like, well, that would be a bit boring, wouldn't it? So we're scratching our heads at the moment. I think a really, really big focus and push for us is going to be around talent and learning and development, because we've done some great work in the acquisition space, and we've got all these brilliant people joining the business and continue to join the business. But actually, we want to make sure that when they're with us, they're getting the most out of the experience at Stowe's. And one of the things that we say in our EVP is we're here to help you get ahead. And we're actually really clear about what we mean by that, which is that's not just about helping you get ahead at Stowe's and your career progression. It's actually helping you with your where you might go next, even if it's not with the business. If we can somehow help you and develop you that positions you for your next role, whether that's with us or not, then we'll feel really pleased. Well, that's a big tick for us as a job well done. So that's something that we're doing, and we talked a lot at the Stowfest about that, as to kind of actually having an L&D strategy, which we didn't have before. Everything was very ad hoc and nobody really knew, and promotions were a bit kind of behind closed doors. So just kind of having a lot more transparency, people understand the opportunities available to them. And we were at Stowfest, we actually announced our personal development fund. So people can now apply for grants to do a training in anything at all not related to their job. So we're trying to encourage people to develop new skills as part of kind of like getting to know our colleagues and getting them to kind of bring more of themselves to work, as it were. And there's no strings attached, save for they have to find a creative way to share that new skill with their colleagues and their team once they've completed whatever the training is. So we've got lots of excited people trying to figure out whether they can want to play the guitar or decorate a cake or learn some floristry. I think someone in my team decided that she wants to learn sign language, which is brilliant as well. So it's just finding interesting and creative ways to support people's development, and not just about the technical aspects of the role that they are doing currently. So that's going to be a really big push for us, I think.
I'm interested there, I suppose, kind of a natural conclusion, but I'm going to ask this because it's a bit of a controversial. That seems really different from the average professional services firm, particularly one that's private equity backed, because often with you'd expect it to be all about hours and money, and it sounds very human. And is that because of the leadership, or the way you've been? Or I'm just intrigued as to, or am I being unfair on a lot of professional services firms? But
I mean, I don't want to cast aspersions on my colleagues and other businesses. So, but I think it's a combination of all of those things. I think our ownership structure means that there are lots more opportunities for development, because we're not kind of operating an equity partnership where you have to sort of wait for a chair to become free so that you can move up. It's much more meritocracy. I think just we are very people focused, and everything that we do, every decision that we make, we try to have that at the heart of what we're doing, and that's very important to us. And it is about making money. We are a business without a doubt, but we're trying to find ways of doing that without kind of driving people into the ground. And there's a lot of talk in the legal world, particularly at the moment, around well-being and lawyer burnout and finding a better way of doing things. And that's what we're trying to do. And we're trying to be more innovative in terms of our product offering and the way in which we work, and kind of digitalizing that aspects of that, so that we can look at how maybe we can charge differently, which maybe means we can measure productivity differently, and we can remove those kind of pressures on our lawyers. We're not there yet by any stretch of the imagination, but it's certainly hugely on our agenda and something that we want to achieve, so we can just remove that pressure from people. I think is really important to us, and we won't always get it right, and we say when we don't get it right, but we're very keen to listen to what our people are telling us, and we have lots of feedback opportunities for people, and we encourage engagement. We're still at a small enough size that the leadership team is still very hands-on, and we're very visible in the business, and we like to keep our ear to the ground. And we're not kind of scary people. We might have scary job titles, but that's kind of where it ends.
Brilliant. That sounds really inspiring, and what a positive what a positive place to work, and it sounds like a really exciting journey that you're part of and driving in terms of there. So thank you so much for sharing it with us, Morna.
Oh no, thank you very much for having me, Lucinda. It's been brilliant. Thank you.
So if people want to link in with you, and I'm guessing the fact that this whole collaboration and things like that, are you happy for us to share your LinkedIn details, or how your social media details?
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best way to get hold of me. So I'll please
pop them on the show notes. So I really appreciate you coming on. Wish you all the best for the future, and look forward to see where Stowefest and all of your people strategies go from here.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
I really hope you found this week's episode useful and enjoyable. If you did, perhaps you could recommend us to a friend or colleague, or give us a review on your platform of choice. It really helps new listeners to find us. Now, you can access links to any of the information mentioned in this show via the website www.hruprising.com. Further free resources are also available at www.actus.co.uk. There you can also find out more about our software and training solutions. Finally, why not join our LinkedIn group, the HR Uprising, to share ideas and collaborate with other like-minded people professionals. Thank you for listening to the HR Uprising podcast.